Beneath a vast, indifferent sky, a single longship cuts through the endless expanse of the North Atlantic. The rhythmic creak of oak timbers and the relentless slap of waves against the hull are the only sounds. Ahead, nothing but the gray horizon. Astern, only the fading memory of land. For days, perhaps weeks, this vessel has been a tiny speck in an unfathomable ocean. The challenge was immense, bordering on the impossible by modern standards. Without maps charting the unknown, without a compass to fix direction, or a sextant to measure latitude, how did these Norse voyagers consistently find their way across hundreds, even thousands of miles of open water? Their voyages were not random drifts, but calculated expeditions of discovery and conquest. At the core of their navigational system was an intimate understanding of the sun's predictable path. The rising and setting points of the sun varied with the seasons, a celestial clock they learned to read instinctively. Even on cloudy days, the general direction of the sun could be inferred from the diffuse light, offering a fundamental bearing for their course. For days when the sun was entirely obscured, archaeological evidence suggests the use of a sunstone or sólarsteinn. This crystalline mineral, likely Icelandic spar, possesses polarizing properties. By holding it up to the sky and rotating it, a skilled navigator could pinpoint the sun's hidden position, even through thick cloud cover or fog, revealing a precise direction. Nighttime navigation relied on the stars. The pole star, Polaris, provided a stable indicator of due north, a constant pivot around which the celestial sphere seemed to turn. Other prominent constellations, like the Big Dipper, Karlsvagnen, also served as fixed guides. This stellar map, combined with their understanding of solar movements, offered a comprehensive celestial framework. Beyond the celestial, Norse navigators were masters of environmental observation. The flight paths of seabirds, particularly migrating species, were invaluable indicators of land. Whales, often found near continental shelves or rich feeding grounds, signaled the proximity of different water bodies. Even the smell of land carried on the wind could confirm their approximate location. The very texture of the ocean surface provided critical data. Swells, generated by distant storms or land masses, traveled for hundreds of miles. An experienced navigator could read these patterns, distinguishing between primary swells, indicating open ocean, and secondary swells that might signify nearby coastlines or islands. This subtle language of the waves offered a constant tactile compass. Close to land, depth sounding became a vital technique. A lead line, marked at various intervals, allowed them to determine the depth of the water and the composition of the seabed. Different types of sand, mud, or rock adhering to the lead were cataloged in their mental maps, confirming their position relative to known coastal features or fishing banks. Knowledge of ocean currents was another fundamental layer of their navigational system. The flow of water, often influenced by the Coriolis effect and major land masses, could either aid or hinder a voyage. By understanding and accounting for these currents, Vikings could estimate drift and adjust their course, maximizing speed or correcting for deviations. This intricate web of observations was not left to chance, but was part of the leiðarstjarna, the guiding star or pilot's craft. Each captain or stýrimaðr accumulated a vast mental repository of geographical knowledge, weather patterns, and celestial movements passed down through generations. Their minds were living atlases, constantly updated with each new voyage. The navigational tools were rudimentary by modern standards, but profoundly effective. Beyond the possible sunstone, they likely carried wooden boards with holes to mark sun positions, tally sticks to track days at sea, and perhaps a simple gnomon to cast shadows for time and direction. These weren't instruments of precision, but aids to memory and observation. Their system was holistic, a synthesis of celestial mechanics, natural phenomena, and accumulated experiential knowledge. It demanded constant vigilance and an intimate connection to their environment. Every cloud, every wave, every bird offered a piece of the puzzle, allowing the Norseman to orient himself within the vastness of the ocean. The longship itself was not merely a vessel, it was an extension of the navigator's senses. Its shallow draft allowed exploration of intricate coastlines, while its flexible clinker-built hull absorbed the shock of the open ocean. The square sail, efficient for downwind travel, required constant adjustment by the crew to maintain the intended course, a team effort in steering. On board, the crew functioned as a disciplined unit, each member contributing to the navigational effort. Sailors observed changes in weather, water color, and bird activity, relaying information to the stýrimaðr. This collective observation heightened their chances of noticing subtle signs of land or shifting conditions that a single individual might miss. The stýrimaðr was often a man of considerable experience and standing, not just a skilled seaman, but a repository of generational knowledge. He bore the immense responsibility for the ship's course and the lives of those aboard. His decision-making, based on intuition forged by countless hours at sea, was paramount. Decision-making on long voyages was a blend of autocracy and consensus. While the captain made final calls, experienced crew members often offered counsel, drawing on their own observations and wisdom. This collaborative wisdom minimized individual error and maximized the collective understanding of their position and trajectory. The concept of landnám, land-taking or settlement, was intrinsically linked to their navigational prowess. The very act of finding and settling new lands like Iceland or Greenland required precise and repeatable navigation. These were not accidental discoveries but often targeted expeditions, sometimes led by individuals seeking new opportunities. The Saga or Ocean Saga, oral traditions passed down, often contained vital navigational data disguised as epic tales. Descriptions of specific islands, prominent landmarks, dangerous currents, or the habits of certain marine life were embedded within these stories, serving as a mnemonic device for future generations of seafarers. The navigational capabilities of the Norsemen often surpassed those of their contemporaries in several critical aspects. While Mediterranean civilizations utilized coastal pilotage and rudimentary charts for their enclosed seas, the Vikings ventured into the vast, uncharted North Atlantic, a feat few others dared or achieved with similar consistency. Anglo-Saxon and Frankish seafaring, while robust for coastal trade and short crossings, lacked the systematic open ocean techniques refined by the Norse. Their ships were often less seaworthy for long voyages into the relentless North Atlantic weather, and their maritime culture did not prioritize the same deep environmental observation. The Viking approach was not about static charts, but dynamic interpretation. Unlike the Mediterranean mariners who hugged coastlines or navigated between known islands, the Norse embraced the emptiness of the sea, transforming it into a readable text. Their methods were a fusion of science, folklore, and profound practical experience. The development of the longship itself was a key differentiator. Its flexibility, speed, and shallow draft offered unparalleled versatility for both raiding shallow rivers and traversing deep oceans. This vessel design, coupled with advanced sailing techniques, enabled voyages of exploration that were simply beyond the scope of other European navies. While other cultures might rely on divine guidance or superstitious rituals, the Norse system was rooted in empirical observation and logical deduction. Every cloud, every wave pattern, every bird was a data point to be analyzed, not an omen to be feared. This pragmatic approach fostered a culture of precise, though unwritten, navigational science. The sheer ambition of their voyages set them apart. The journeys to Greenland and Vinland were not accidental landfalls, but deliberate, multi-stage expeditions requiring an advanced understanding of celestial navigation, oceanography, and ship handling that remained unsurpassed in Western Europe for centuries. Despite their unparalleled success, the Viking Age's navigational dominance eventually waned. One significant factor was the gradual Christianization of Scandinavia. As pagan beliefs faded, so too did some of the oral traditions and deep-seated cultural connections to animistic environmental observations that underpinned their navigation. The rise of centralized monarchies across Northern Europe also contributed to this shift. As kings consolidated power, the independent longship raids and explorations, often led by powerful local chieftains, became less frequent. State-sponsored voyages emphasized different objectives, often involving more formal cartography and less individual initiative. Climatic changes played a subtle but important role. The medieval warm period had facilitated some of the longer voyages, making routes like the North Atlantic more accessible. As temperatures shifted, ice conditions in the north worsened, making routes to Greenland and Vinland increasingly perilous and less viable for regular travel. The development of more sophisticated navigation tools in southern Europe, such as the magnetic compass and improved astrolabes, gradually offered alternative, standardized methods. While initially less reliable in certain contexts, these tools eventually democratized navigation, reducing reliance on generations of accumulated, esoteric knowledge. Furthermore, the very success of their expansion led to a degree of stability. Once settled, the need for constant, far-reaching exploration diminished. Communities were established, trade routes became regularized, and the impetus for venturing into the absolute unknown with nothing but sun, stars, and sea scents lessened. The integration into broader European trade networks also shifted their maritime focus. The demand for bulk goods and regular commerce favored larger, slower cargo ships like the Nar, which, while seaworthy, were not designed for the swift, exploratory voyages of the longship, nor did they require the same level of individual navigational daring. The very nature of their navigational system, relying on deeply embedded cultural knowledge and individual skill, made it vulnerable to shifts in societal structure. Unlike written charts that could be easily replicated and distributed, the Leadarstjarna existed primarily in the minds of the master navigators, making it harder to sustain across sweeping cultural transformations. The focus shifted from open ocean exploration to more settled, continental trade. The grand voyages of discovery gave way to established routes connecting burgeoning towns and cities. The impetus for daring ventures into the unknown diminished as the opportunities for plunder and new land became less frequent or politically viable. By the late 11th and 12th centuries, the age of the independent Viking voyager was largely over. The once dominant techniques for open ocean navigation without instruments began to fade, replaced by or integrated into the more systematic, though initially less daring methods emerging from southern European maritime traditions. Yet, the legacy of Norse navigation endures, a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. Their ability to read the subtle language of the sea and sky to translate raw observation into actionable intelligence speaks volumes about a people deeply attuned to their environment. They mapped the world not with ink on parchment, but with experience in their minds and courage in their hearts. The Viking Age demonstrates that sophisticated technology is not always necessary for monumental achievements. Instead, an acute understanding of natural systems combined with audacious spirit can unlock the seemingly impossible. What fundamental aspects of our modern world do we overlook today, much like the subtle signs of navigation observed by the Norsemen?